Hello there, and welcome to our quiet corner of the world where nature's most enchanting mysteries unfold in darkness. Tonight, we're not simply watching from the outside looking in. We're stepping into one of Earth's most extraordinary theatres, where millions of unseen performers create a symphony that has played without interruption for countless millennia. As the last traces of golden sunlight fade beyond the horizon, something magical begins to stir in the heart of the tropical rainforest. This isn't just the end of another day. It's the opening curtain on a world that most people never witness. A realm where life doesn't pause for darkness, but instead transforms into something even more vibrant and alive. If you've ever found yourself restless at night, searching for that perfect sound to carry you into peaceful sleep, or if you simply long to escape the noise and chaos of modern life, you've come to the right place. What you're about to experience is more than just another nature documentary. It's a gentle journey into one of the most soothing environments our planet has to offer, where every sound, every breath of humid air, and every subtle movement works together to create the ultimate natural lullaby. Before we begin our quiet adventure together, if these tranquil explorations help you find the peace you're seeking, consider subscribing or sharing your thoughts in the comments below. It helps other weary souls discover this sanctuary of calm, one restful night at a time. Now, let's step softly into the darkness and discover what waits for us beneath the canopy. The first thing you notice as twilight deepens is how the very air itself seems to change. Where daylight brought sharp edges and defined shadows, the approaching night wraps everything in a soft, embracing darkness that feels almost tangible. The humidity rises like a gentle blanket, carrying with it the rich, earthy scents of decomposing leaves and blooming flowers that only release their fragrances when the sun disappears. Temperature begins its nightly descent, dropping perhaps 10 degrees from the day's warmth, but never becoming truly cool. Instead, the air settles into that perfect middle ground between warm and temperate, creating an atmosphere so comfortable you could imagine floating in it. This is the moment when the forest begins to breathe differently, when moisture starts to gather on every surface, turning leaves into tiny reservoirs and tree bark into living waterfalls. As we move deeper into this twilight world, our eyes slowly adjust to reveal shapes and textures that were invisible just moments before. The massive buttressed trunks of ancient trees emerge from the gloom like gentle giants, their bark glistening with the first hints of evening condensation. Every surface seems to shimmer with a thin film of moisture, creating millions of tiny mirrors that catch and reflect whatever light filters down from above. The forest floor beneath our feet tells its own story of endless renewal. Fallen leaves carpet the ground in layers so thick they create a natural cushion that muffles every footstep. These leaves, in various stages of decomposition, release their nutrients back into the soil in a process so quiet and continuous that it happens completely unnoticed. Yet it's this very process that feeds the towering giants above us, creating a cycle of life and death and rebirth that has continued unbroken for millions of years. Listen carefully now, and you'll begin to hear the first tentative notes of the night's symphony. Somewhere in the darkness, a single insect begins its evening call. Then another joins in, and another, until gradually the air fills with a gentle chorus of chirps, clicks, and soft buzzing sounds. These aren't the harsh, jarring noises of the human world. These are sounds that have been refined by evolution into the perfect frequencies for promoting calm and relaxation. As we pause here in this natural cathedral, take a moment to notice how different this silence feels from the silence of an empty room. This is what scientists call filled silence, where the absence of harsh sounds allows you to become aware of the thousands of tiny, subtle noises that create a living background of peace. The soft drip of condensing moisture falling from leaf to leaf, the almost inaudible rustle of small creatures moving through the undergrowth, the gentle whisper of air moving through countless leaves and branches. Above us, the forest canopy creates a living ceiling that stretches away into darkness. This canopy, formed by the interlocking branches and leaves of trees that may be centuries old, acts as a natural sound dampener, absorbing harsh noises while allowing the softer, more soothing sounds to filter through. It's nature's own acoustic engineering, refined over millions of years to create the perfect environment for rest and rejuvenation. The humidity continues to rise as night deepens, and with it comes one of the rainforest's most remarkable features. Every surface becomes a garden for epiphytes, those fascinating plants that live entirely in the air, drawing their nutrients from moisture and organic matter that collects around them. These aerial gardens create miniature ecosystems throughout the vertical layers of the forest, each one supporting its own community of tiny creatures. In the crook of a massive tree branch, a bromeliad has collected nearly 2 gallons of rainwater in its upturned leaves, creating a small pond 30 feet above the forest floor. This tiny reservoir supports an entire community of insects, small frogs, and even fish in some cases. It's a perfect example of how the rainforest creates countless microhabitats, each one contributing its own subtle sounds to the evening's performance. As we continue our gentle journey through this nighttime wonderland, notice how the path ahead seems to glow with a soft, silvery light. This isn't artificial illumination, but rather the combined effect of countless water droplets on leaves and bark, each one acting as a tiny lens that focuses and reflects whatever ambient light exists. The result is an environment that feels luminous without being bright, mysterious without being frightening. The air itself seems to pulse with life as thousands of insects begin their nightly activities. Moths flutter past on silent wings, their movements creating barely perceptible changes in air pressure that you feel more than see. Beetles click and tap as they navigate the complex three-dimensional maze of branches and vines. Flying insects create gentle buzzing sounds that rise and fall in natural rhythms, never harsh or demanding, always part of the greater symphony. Here, beneath a towering cecropia tree, we encounter one of the forest's most enchanting nighttime phenomena. Tiny lights begin to flicker in the undergrowth, appearing and disappearing like fallen stars. These are bioluminescent insects, creatures that produce their own light through chemical reactions that have fascinated scientists for generations. Their soft, greenish glow adds an otherworldly quality to the forest floor, creating natural nightlights that guide nocturnal creatures through the darkness. The gentle clicking and chirping sounds grow more pronounced now, creating layers upon layers of natural rhythm. It's impossible to identify every sound, and that's precisely what makes this environment so perfect for relaxation. Your brain doesn't need to process and categorize every noise. Instead, it can simply let the sounds wash over you like warm water, allowing your nervous system to naturally shift into its rest and repair mode. Moisture continues to accumulate on every surface around us. Leaves that were dry just an hour ago now drip steadily, creating a soft percussion section for the forest's orchestra. This isn't the harsh drumming of a thunderstorm, but rather the gentle, irregular tapping of individual droplets finding their way from branch to branch, leaf to leaf, eventually reaching the forest floor, where they're absorbed into the rich, dark soil. The temperature has stabilized now at that perfect point, where your body requires no energy to maintain comfort. The humidity, rather than feeling oppressive, creates a cocoon of warmth that seems to embrace you from all sides. This is the climate that has nurtured life for millions of years. The same conditions that allow tropical rainforests to support more species per square mile than any other ecosystem on Earth. As we move deeper into the heart of this nocturnal paradise, the sounds around us become even more diverse and layered. Somewhere in the canopy above, a nightbird calls with a voice like liquid silver, its song echoing briefly before being absorbed by the dense vegetation. The call is answered from somewhere far away, creating a conversation that spans hundreds of yards of forest. Small frogs hidden among the leaves add their voices to the chorus, each species with its own distinctive call. Some produce clear, bell-like notes that ring through the humid air. Others create rhythmic croaking sounds that blend seamlessly with the background of insect calls. Still others make soft trilling sounds that seem to shimmer in the darkness like audible dewdrops. The forest floor beneath our feet reveals new wonders with every step. Fallen logs, covered in a thick carpet of moss and tiny ferns, serve as nurseries for countless small creatures. These decomposing giants, which may have fallen decades or even centuries ago, now support entire communities of insects, fungi, and microscopic life forms. The process of decay happens so slowly in this humid environment that a single fallen tree can support life for hundreds of years. Every breath you take here is different from the air you know in the outside world. This air has been filtered through millions of leaves, enriched with oxygen from countless plants, and perfumed with the gentle scents of flowers that bloom only in darkness. Some of these night-blooming plants release fragrances specifically designed to attract nocturnal pollinators, creating an ever-changing bouquet of subtle aromas that drift through the forest on the barely perceptible night breeze. The darkness here is not the harsh, empty darkness of urban nights. This is a living darkness, filled with gentle sounds and soft movements, where every shadow might conceal a sleeping bird or a cluster of night-blooming orchids. It's a darkness that invites rest rather than demanding vigilance. A darkness that wraps around you like the most comfortable blanket you've ever known. As we pause here in this natural sanctuary, surrounded by the gentle symphony of countless unseen creatures, take a moment to feel how your body responds to this environment. Your breathing naturally becomes deeper and more regular. Your heart rate begins to slow. The tension in your muscles starts to dissolve as your nervous system recognizes this as a place of safety and peace. This is just the beginning of our journey through the nighttime rainforest. Ahead of us lie deeper mysteries, stranger wonders, and even more profound peace. The night is young, and the forest has many more secrets to share with those patient enough to listen and gentle enough to receive its gifts. As we venture further along this winding trail, the forest reveals one of its most remarkable secrets. The path beneath our feet isn't really a path at all, but rather a network of tiny streams and rivulets that flow so gently they barely disturb the fallen leaves. Water moves everywhere here, not in rushing torrents, but in whispered conversations between the earth and sky. Every step releases the soft squelch of saturated soil, a sound so muffled and organic it becomes part of your own breathing rhythm. The air grows thicker now, so rich with moisture you can almost taste it. This isn't the stifling humidity of a summer day, but something far more nurturing. It's as if the forest is breathing alongside you, exhaling the day's warmth while drawing in the coolness of approaching night. Your skin begins to glisten with the same fine mist that coats every leaf and branch, creating a connection between your body and this living ecosystem that surrounds us. Above our heads, the canopy has become a vast cathedral of interwoven branches, each one draped with gardens that never touch the ground. Orchids bloom in complete darkness, their petals so delicate they seem carved from moonlight itself. Bromeliads collect pools of rainwater that have become entire worlds for creatures no bigger than your fingernail. Ferns cascade downward like green waterfalls, their fronds trembling with accumulated moisture that falls in irregular droplets, creating a percussion section that never quite repeats the same rhythm twice. Listen now to how the soundscape has evolved as we've moved deeper into this nocturnal realm. The simple chirping we heard earlier has grown into something far more complex. A layered composition where hundreds of different voices weave together without ever competing for attention. Each creature seems to know its place in this ancient orchestra, contributing its voice at precisely the right moment and frequency to add to the whole, without overwhelming it. Somewhere in the understory, a tree frog no larger than your thumb produces a sound like crystal bells, touching in a gentle breeze. Its call floats through the humid air for several seconds before fading, only to be answered by another of its kind from somewhere impossibly distant. These conversations span vast distances through the forest, creating invisible threads of communication that connect creatures separated by hundreds of yards of dense vegetation. The humidity continues to work its magic on every surface around us. What were dry, rough tree trunks just hours ago have now become living waterfalls, their bark transformed into channels that guide moisture downward in patterns carved by countless rainy seasons. The water doesn't rush or splash, but rather glides in silent films that catch and reflect whatever light manages to filter through the canopy above. As we round a gentle bend in the trail, something extraordinary begins to reveal itself. The forest floor ahead seems to sparkle with tiny points of light, as if someone had scattered diamonds among the fallen leaves. These are not reflections or tricks of light, but living illumination produced by creatures so small they could dance on the head of a pin. Bioluminescent fungi, invisible during the day, now glow with a soft greenish light that pulses gently like a slow heartbeat. Step closer and you'll discover that these glowing patches mark the locations of fallen logs in various stages of decay. The fungi that produce this ethereal light are quietly breaking down the wood, returning its nutrients to the soil in a process that will continue for decades. Each glowing spot represents a community of millions of organisms working together in perfect harmony, creating beauty as a byproduct of their essential work. The air here carries scents that exist nowhere else on Earth. Night-blooming flowers release fragrances so subtle they barely register as smell, more like memories of perfume carried on the gentlest possible breeze. These plants have evolved their aromas specifically for creatures that navigate by scent in complete darkness, creating chemical trails through the air that guide pollinators from flower to flower across impossible distances. Moving deeper still, we encounter one of the rainforest's most enchanting microhabitats. Where a massive tree fell perhaps a century ago, its trunk has become a garden in the air. The entire length of this fallen giant, suspended 15 feet above the ground by the trees it fell against, now supports a complete ecosystem. Mosses carpet its surface like the softest velvet. Tiny ferns sprout from every crevice. Small pools of water collected in hollows serve as drinking fountains for creatures that may never touch the ground in their entire lives. The sounds here take on an even more intimate quality. The buzz of insects becomes individualized rather than collective, allowing you to distinguish between the high whine of tiny gnats, the deeper hum of beetles, and the irregular clicking of creatures whose names remain unknown to science. Each sound exists within its own acoustic space, never interfering with the others, creating a three-dimensional audio environment that surrounds and embraces you. Water continues to be the defining element of this nighttime world. It beads on spider webs, turning them into strings of pearls that stretch between branches. It pools in the curved leaves of plants, creating mirrors that reflect the few stars visible through gaps in the canopy. It runs in tiny streams down the grooves in tree bark, following channels carved by millions of previous rainy nights. The forest floor beneath us has become increasingly soft and spongy, each step sinking slightly into layers of decomposing vegetation that may be decades deep. This organic carpet muffles every sound we make, allowing us to move through this environment as silently as the creatures that call it home. The rich, earthy aroma that rises from this natural compost is somehow both ancient and fresh, speaking of cycles of renewal that have continued uninterrupted since long before humans walked the earth. As we pause beside a particularly massive tree, its trunk so wide that 20 people holding hands couldn't encircle it, the true scale of this environment begins to reveal itself. This single tree may be over 500 years old, a living monument that was already ancient when European explorers first glimpsed these forests. Its bark, now wet with condensation, supports an entire vertical ecosystem from ground level to a canopy we cannot see in the darkness above. The buttressed roots of this giant create natural alcoves and chambers, each one a microhabitat with its own climate and community of residents. In one shallow depression between roots, rainwater has collected to form a pool no larger than a dinner plate. Yet this tiny body of water supports aquatic insects, microscopic organisms, and serves as a nursery for tree frog tadpoles that will complete their entire larval development in this miniature pond. Above us, epiphytic gardens cascade down from invisible heights, their roots never touching soil, drawing all their nutrients from the humid air and organic matter that accumulates in the crevices of bark. These air plants create hanging gardens throughout the forest's vertical layers, each one contributing to the gentle symphony of dripping water and rustling leaves that forms the soundtrack of the rainforest night. The temperature has found its perfect equilibrium now, that magical point where your body requires no energy to maintain comfort. The air temperature matches your skin temperature so precisely that the boundary between your body and the environment begins to dissolve. This is the same climate that has nurtured the incredible diversity of life we're surrounded by, conditions so stable and nurturing that evolution has been able to experiment endlessly, creating forms of life found nowhere else on Earth. Every breath here is different from any air you've ever experienced. It's been filtered through millions of leaves, each one adding its own contribution of oxygen and subtle aromatics. Plants that photosynthesize during the day now switch to different metabolic processes, releasing different compounds into the air, creating an atmospheric chemistry that changes subtly throughout the night. The gentle sounds around us continue to evolve as different creatures become active at different hours. What began as simple insect chirping has now expanded to include the soft hooting of night birds, the occasional splash of a small animal drinking from a hidden stream, and the almost inaudible rustle of leaves as creatures too small to see navigate the complex three-dimensional maze of branches above our heads. As we continue along this winding trail, deeper into the heart of the rainforest night, each step takes us further from the world we know and closer to something ancient and eternal. This is not just a walk through a forest, but a journey into one of Earth's oldest and most stable environments, a place where the fundamental rhythms of life continue exactly as they have for millions of years. The path ahead disappears into gentle darkness, promising even deeper mysteries and more profound peace. The night is far from over. and the rainforest has countless more secrets waiting to be discovered by those willing to move slowly, listen carefully, and open themselves to the gentle magic that surrounds us in every direction. Here in this deeper sanctuary, the forest reveals one of its most extraordinary architectural achievements. Ancient vines, some as thick as telephone poles, spiral upward around tree trunks in perfect helixes, creating living staircases that disappear into the darkness above. These woody climbers began their journey to the canopy decades ago as seeds no larger than peppercorns, and now they form bridges and highways between trees, allowing entire communities of creatures to travel through the forest without ever touching the ground. The humidity has reached that perfect saturation point where every surface becomes a canvas for moisture to paint its delicate patterns. Spiderwebs, invisible during the day, now reveal themselves as masterpieces of engineering, each strand outlined in tiny water droplets that catch and hold whatever light exists in this shadowy realm. These webs stretch between branches at every level, creating barriers so fine they barely disturb the air that passes through them, yet strong enough to stop flying insects in their tracks. Moving carefully around one of these gossamer masterpieces, we encounter a microhabitat so small it could fit in the palm of your hand, yet so complete it supports its own ecosystem. Where two branches meet, organic matter has accumulated over decades to create a tiny garden suspended 20 feet above the forest floor. A single orchid grows here, its roots embedded in nothing but accumulated leaves and moss, its white petals glowing like small moons in the darkness. The sounds here take on an even more intimate quality as we move deeper into this vertical world. Each layer of the forest contributes its own voice to the symphony, creating a three-dimensional soundscape that seems to surround and embrace us from every direction. High above, the rustle of leaves moved by air currents too gentle to feel at ground level. In the middle story, the soft calls of creatures navigating between branches. And here, at our level, the whispered conversations of insects and the barely audible drip of condensing moisture. Water continues to define every aspect of this environment, but not as the rushing streams and waterfalls you might expect. Instead, it moves through the forest in countless tiny pathways, each drop following roots carved by gravity and plant structure over thousands of rainy seasons. Leaves channel moisture toward their stems, stems guide it toward branches, and branches direct it toward trunks in an elaborate system of natural gutters and downspouts. The air itself has become so saturated with moisture that it takes on an almost tangible quality, like walking through the gentlest possible mist. This isn't the harsh spray of an artificial humidifier, but something far more subtle and nurturing. Every breath carries with it the essence of countless plants and flowers, creating an aromatherapy experience that exists nowhere else on Earth. As we round another gentle curve in the trail, the forest floor opens into a small clearing where moonlight filters through a gap in the canopy above. Here, the increased light reveals details that were hidden in the deeper shadows. Fallen logs lie scattered like sleeping giants, each one in a different stage of decomposition, each one supporting its own unique community of organisms working to break down wood and return nutrients to the soil. One particular log, perhaps 5 feet in diameter and covered in a thick carpet of emerald moss, has become a nursery for dozens of tiny seedlings. Baby trees, some no taller than your finger, sprout from every available surface, their roots penetrating deep into the soft, decaying wood. This is how the forest regenerates itself, using the fallen bodies of giants to nurture the next generation of canopy trees. The bioluminescent displays become more pronounced in this slightly brighter environment. Patches of glowing fungi mark the locations of particularly rich deposits of organic matter, their soft green light pulsing in slow rhythms that seem synchronized with your own heartbeat. These living lanterns serve as navigation aids for countless nocturnal creatures, creating a network of natural streetlights throughout the forest floor. Moving closer to examine one of these glowing patches, you discover that what appeared to be a single source of light is actually composed of thousands of individual points, each one a tiny fungal structure no bigger than a pinhead. Together, they create sheets of living luminescence that transform fallen logs into glowing sculptures, art installations created by nature for an audience that exists only at night. The temperature remains perfectly balanced, neither warm nor cool, creating conditions so comfortable that clothing becomes almost irrelevant. This is the climate that has allowed tropical rainforests to become the most biodiverse environments on Earth. Stable conditions that have persisted for millions of years, providing the consistency necessary for evolution to create forms of life found nowhere else. Above us, the canopy continues its work as nature's most sophisticated climate control system. During the day, it intercepts 95% of the sunlight that strikes the forest, preventing the understory from overheating. At night, it traps the day's accumulated warmth, preventing rapid cooling that would stress the countless creatures that depend on stable temperatures for their survival. The gentle sounds around us continue to evolve as the night progresses and different shifts of creatures take over various ecological roles. What began as simple chirping has now expanded into a complex composition where bass notes provided by larger insects blend seamlessly with the higher frequencies produced by their smaller cousins. Occasionally, a nightbird contributes a melodic phrase that floats through the humid air like liquid music. Water droplets continue to accumulate and fall in irregular patterns that create a natural percussion section for this forest orchestra. Each drop that falls from leaf to leaf produces its own unique tone, determined by the distance traveled, the surface it strikes, and the resonance of the space around it. The result is a constantly changing rhythm that never quite repeats, keeping your brain engaged without demanding conscious attention. As we venture further into this aquatic wonderland, the trail begins to follow alongside a small stream that appears and disappears beneath fallen logs and dense vegetation. The water moves so slowly it barely creates any sound, just the occasional soft gurgle as it encounters a small obstacle or the gentle lap of tiny waves against a moss-covered stone. This hidden waterway supports its own specialized community of creatures adapted to life in perpetual twilight and high humidity. Delicate ferns line its banks, their fronds so finely divided they look like green lace in the dim light. Small pools, formed by natural dams of fallen branches, serve as nurseries for aquatic insects and amphibians that spend their entire lives within a few yards of where they hatched. The air above the stream carries its own unique microclimate, even more humid than the surrounding forest, creating perfect conditions for plants that require constant moisture to survive. Mosses carpet every available surface, transforming rough bark into cushions of living velvet. These simple plants, among the most ancient on Earth, thrive in conditions that would challenge more complex vegetation. Here, suspended over the water on a fallen branch, we encounter one of the forest's most remarkable architectural achievements. A massive bromeliad, its stiff leaves arranged in a perfect rosette, has collected nearly 3 gallons of rainwater in its central reservoir. This aerial pond, 30 feet above the nearest ground-level water source, supports its own complete ecosystem, including aquatic insects, microscopic organisms, and even tiny fish that somehow found their way to this impossible location. The sounds emanating from this miniature lake add yet another layer to the forest's acoustic tapestry. The gentle splash of a small frog diving for insects, the almost inaudible buzz of mosquito larvae moving through the water, the soft plop of organic matter falling from above to feed the creatures living in this suspended world. Moving away from the stream, we enter an area where the forest floor rises in gentle undulations, creating microclimates within microclimates. In the shallow valleys between these rises, moisture accumulates to create conditions even more humid than the surrounding areas. Here, plants that exist nowhere else thrive in the perpetual twilight, their leaves so adapted to low light conditions, they appear almost black in the darkness. The buttressed roots of enormous trees create natural amphitheaters where sounds seem to focus and amplify. Standing within one of these organic sound chambers, the forest's symphony takes on new dimensions, with echoes and reverberations that add depth and complexity to every chirp, click, and rustle. It's as if the trees themselves have been designed as musical instruments, their hollow spaces and curved surfaces shaping the acoustic environment. Every step forward reveals new wonders, new examples of the incredible complexity that thrives in this humid darkness. Epiphytic gardens cascade from branches invisible above, their roots forming curtains of living fiber that filter the air and provide habitat for countless creatures too small to see. These hanging gardens create vertical neighborhoods throughout the forest, each one supporting its own community of residents. The path ahead continues to wind deeper into this aquatic paradise, where every surface drips with life-giving moisture, and every sound contributes to a symphony that has played without interruption for millions of years. The night is still young, and the rainforest has countless more secrets waiting to be discovered by those patient enough to listen and gentle enough to receive its gifts. As we move forward into even deeper mysteries, the forest seems to close around us like a living embrace, offering protection from the harsh realities of the outside world and inviting us to surrender completely to the gentle rhythms of this ancient sanctuary. Each breath brings us closer to the profound peace that exists at the heart of the tropical rainforest night, where time moves differently and the very air seems to pulse with the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth itself. Beat of the earth itself. The forest floor beneath us begins to tell a different story now, one written in layers of decomposition that stretch back decades. Each footfall sinks slightly into this organic manuscript, revealing pages of fallen leaves in every stage of returning to the earth. The topmost layer crackles softly under our weight, still holding the memory of sunlight and wind. Below that, leaves have begun to soften and merge, their individual identities dissolving into something richer and more complex. And deeper still, we discover soil so black and fertile, it seems to absorb light itself, the final chapter in countless stories of growth, death, and renewal. This natural carpet creates the perfect acoustic foundation for our journey, muffling harsh sounds while allowing the gentler voices of the forest to float freely through the humid air. Every step releases subtle fragrances trapped within these layers, aromatics that speak of rain and time, and the patient work of countless organisms breaking down complexity into simplicity, then building it up again into new forms of life. As we move deeper into this realm of perpetual moisture, the very concept of dryness becomes foreign. Everything here exists in various states of wetness, from the gentle film of condensation that coats every surface to the standing pools of water that collect in natural depressions between roots. This isn't the harsh wetness of a storm, but something far more nurturing, as if the forest itself is gently weeping tears of joy. The trail ahead disappears into what appears to be a tunnel, formed by interlocking branches and hanging vines. As we enter this natural passageway, the sensation is like stepping into a living cave, where walls breathe and the ceiling drips with accumulated moisture from the invisible canopy above. The air here moves differently, circulating in slow currents that carry the concentrated essence of countless plants and flowers. Within this green tunnel, we encounter some of the forest's most specialized residents, creatures so adapted to perpetual humidity that they would perish in any drier environment have made their homes in the spaces between leaves and bark. Their presence is revealed not by sight, but by the subtle sounds they make as they navigate their three-dimensional world. The soft scraping of tiny claws on wet bark, the almost inaudible rustle of something moving through accumulated organic matter, the gentle plash of a droplet displaced by a creature too small to see. Emerging from the tunnel, we find ourselves in what can only be described as a natural greenhouse, where humidity has reached such perfection that plants grow in combinations impossible anywhere else on Earth. Delicate ferns cascade from branches like green waterfalls, their fronds so fine they seem to be made of condensed mist. Orchids bloom in impossible colors, their petals so saturated with moisture they appear to glow from within. The soundscape here takes on an even more intimate quality, as if we've stepped inside a living instrument designed to produce the most soothing possible combinations of natural sounds. Water moves in countless tiny streams and rivulets, each one following pathways carved by gravity and plant architecture over thousands of rainy seasons. The result is a percussion section composed entirely of liquid music, where every drop creates its own note in an endless composition. Above us, the architecture of branches and vines creates natural sound chambers, where echoes and reverberations add depth to every noise. A single frog call becomes a conversation with itself as it bounces between the curved surfaces of buttressed roots and the hollow spaces within fallen logs. The gentle buzz of insects takes on new dimensions as it reflects off the countless surfaces of this vertical world. Moving through this acoustic wonderland, we begin to notice how different frequencies occupy different layers of the forest. High above, beyond our sight, the rustle of leaves moved by air currents too gentle to feel at ground level creates a soft, constant whisper. In the middle story, creatures navigate between branches with sounds like fingers brushing against silk. And here at our level, the forest floor contributes its own bass notes as small animals move through the thick carpet of decomposing leaves. The humidity continues to work its magic on every surface around us, transforming rough bark into living waterfalls and turning spiderwebs into masterpieces of liquid sculpture. These webs, invisible during the day, now reveal themselves as engineering marvels, where every strand is outlined in tiny pearls of condensed moisture. They stretch between branches at every level, creating barriers so fine they barely disturb the air that passes through them. As we round a gentle bend, the trail opens onto a small clearing where a massive tree fell perhaps decades ago, creating a gap in the canopy that allows filtered moonlight to reach the forest floor. Here, in this natural amphitheater, the increased illumination reveals details that were hidden in the deeper shadows. The fallen giant has become a garden in the air, its massive trunk suspended 15 feet above the ground by the trees it fell against. This aerial ecosystem supports an entire world of creatures that may never touch the actual ground in their entire lives. Mosses carpet the bark like the softest velvet. Tiny ferns sprout from every crevice, Small pools of water collected in natural depressions serve as drinking fountains and nurseries for insects and amphibians adapted to this suspended existence. The bioluminescent displays become more pronounced in this environment where darkness and filtered light create the perfect conditions for living illumination. Patches of glowing fungi trace the outlines of fallen logs and accumulated organic matter, their soft green light pulsing in rhythms that seem synchronized with the gentle breathing of the forest itself. These natural lanterns create a network of navigation aids for nocturnal creatures, turning the forest floor into a constellation of terrestrial stars. Water continues to define every aspect of this environment, but here it moves in even more subtle and complex patterns. Leaves channel moisture toward their stems in perfectly evolved drainage systems. Stems guide water toward branches along grooves carved by millions of previous rainy nights, and branches direct the flow toward trunks in elaborate networks of natural gutters that ensure every drop reaches the roots that need it most. The air itself has become so saturated with moisture that breathing feels like drinking the gentlest possible mist. This isn't the harsh humidity of a sauna, but something far more nurturing and life-giving. Every breath carries with it the concentrated essence of countless plants working together to create an atmospheric chemistry that exists nowhere else on Earth. Moving deeper into this aquatic paradise, we encounter one of the forest's most remarkable displays of biological cooperation. Where a stream disappears beneath a fallen log, the constant moisture has created conditions perfect for a community of organisms working together to break down wood and return nutrients to the soil. The log itself has become a garden, its surface carpeted with mosses and tiny seedlings that will eventually grow to replace the giant that gave them life. The sounds emanating from this decomposition community add yet another layer to the forest's symphony. The soft clicking of insects working beneath the bark, the almost inaudible rustle of fungal threads growing through wood, the gentle splash of water moving through the hollow spaces created by decades of patient decay. Here, in a small pool formed by the natural damming effect of fallen branches, we discover an entire aquatic ecosystem no larger than a bathtub. Crystal clear water reflects the few stars visible through gaps in the canopy above, creating the illusion of swimming constellations. Small fish, no bigger than your thumbnail, dart between submerged leaves and fallen flowers, their movements creating tiny waves that disturb the reflected starlight in patterns of liquid silver. The edges of this miniature lake support their own specialized plant communities. Delicate mosses form cushions of living velvet along the water's edge. Tiny ferns create curtains of green lace that filter the gentle flow of water entering and leaving the pool. And suspended just above the surface, spider webs stretched between reed-like stems create landing platforms for insects that come to drink in the darkness. The temperature remains perfectly balanced at that magical point where clothing becomes irrelevant and the boundary between your body and the environment begins to dissolve. This is the climate that has allowed tropical rainforests to become laboratories of evolution, where stable conditions persisting for millions of years have provided the consistency necessary for life to experiment with forms and behaviors found nowhere else on Earth. As we continue along this winding trail, each step takes us deeper into an environment where time seems to move according to different rules. The urgent pace of the modern world has no place here, where growth is measured in seasons rather than seconds, and where the most important processes happen so slowly they're invisible to casual observation. The path ahead curves around the base of another enormous tree, its buttressed roots creating natural alcoves and chambers, where different microclimates exist within just a few feet of each other. In one shallow depression, rainwater has collected to form a pool no larger than a dinner plate. Yet this tiny body of water supports aquatic insects, microscopic organisms, and serves as a complete nursery for creatures that will spend their entire larval development in this miniature pond. The gentle sounds around us continue to evolve as different creatures become active at different hours of the night. What began as simple insect chirping has expanded into a complex orchestral arrangement where bass notes provided by larger beetles blend seamlessly with the crystalline voices of tiny tree frogs. Occasionally, a nightbird contributes a melodic phrase that floats through the humid air like liquid music, its song echoing briefly before being absorbed by the dense vegetation. Moving forward into even deeper mysteries, the forest seems to embrace us with increasing intimacy, as if we've proven worthy of its most closely guarded secrets. The air grows thicker still, so rich with moisture and the breath of countless plants that it feels almost nutritious, as if simply breathing here provides nourishment for body and soul alike. Each breath draws us deeper into harmony with this ancient rhythm, where the boundaries between self and forest begin to blur, and we become part of the gentle symphony that has played without interruption since long before human voices joined the chorus of life on Earth. The night stretches ahead, full of wonders yet to be discovered and peace yet to be experienced in this sanctuary where time moves like honey, and every moment offers new reasons to marvel at the intricate beauty of the natural world. Natural world. The trail begins to descend now, following the gentle contours of the forest floor, as it leads us toward what can only be described as the heart of this nocturnal wonderland. With each step downward, the humidity increases perceptibly, wrapping around us like the gentlest possible embrace. The air becomes so thick with moisture that it takes on an almost liquid quality, as if we're walking through the very breath of the forest itself. Here, where water collects in the lowest reaches of this undulating landscape, we encounter microhabitats so specialized they exist nowhere else on Earth. Tiny valleys between the massive buttressed roots of ancient trees have become miniature worlds, each one supporting its own unique community of creatures, adapted to perpetual dampness and filtered light. In one such depression, no larger than a child's sandbox, an entire ecosystem thrives in conditions that would seem impossible to those unfamiliar with the rainforest magic. The sounds here take on an even more intimate quality, as if we've stepped inside the forest's own private chamber where its most delicate music is performed. Water moves in whispered conversations, trickling along pathways carved by countless rainy seasons into channels so perfect they might have been designed by master engineers. Each tiny stream contributes its own voice to the symphony, creating harmonies that blend and separate in patterns too complex for the conscious mind to follow. Above us, the canopy has grown so dense that even the filtered moonlight struggles to penetrate, creating a world of deep shadows punctuated by the soft glow of bioluminescent organisms. These living lanterns appear more frequently here in the forest's basement level, where nutrients accumulate and decomposition proceeds at its most vigorous pace. Fallen logs glow like sleeping dragons, their surfaces outlined in patches of luminescent fungi that pulse gently in the darkness. Moving through this twilight realm, we discover that every surface tells a story written in moisture. Leaves droop under the weight of accumulated water droplets, each one acting as a tiny lens that focuses and refracts whatever light exists in this shadowy world. Tree bark streams with rivulets that follow grooves and channels developed over decades of wet seasons, creating natural irrigation systems that nourish the countless epiphytes clinging to every vertical surface. The trail itself has become less of a path and more of a gentle suggestion, winding between obstacles that seem placed by nature to create the most peaceful possible journey through this aquatic paradise. Fallen branches force us to step carefully around pools of standing water that reflect the few points of bioluminescent light like mirrors made of liquid obsidian. Each footstep releases subtle fragrances trapped within the waterlogged soil, aromatics that speak of deep time and patient transformation. As we navigate around a particularly massive buttressed route, the forest opens into what can only be described as a natural conservatory. Here, where a small tributary of our earlier stream disappears beneath the forest floor, the increased moisture has created conditions perfect for plants that exist at the very edge of possibility. Delicate mosses form carpets so thick and soft they seem to glow with their own inner light. Tiny orchids, no bigger than your thumbnail, bloom in colors that appear almost artificial in their intensity. The air moves differently in this enclosed space, circulating in gentle currents that carry the concentrated essence of countless flowering plants. Night-blooming species release their fragrances into this humid atmosphere, creating an aromatherapy experience so subtle and complex, it exists more as suggestion than actual scent. These chemical messages, evolved over millions of years to attract specific pollinators in complete darkness, now work their ancient magic on our own nervous systems. Listen carefully now, and you'll notice how the acoustic environment has evolved as we've descended deeper into the forest's embrace. The high-frequency calls of insects blend seamlessly with the lower tones, produced by larger creatures moving through the undergrowth. Somewhere in the darkness, a small mammal displaces water as it drinks from a hidden pool. The sound so soft, it might be mistaken for a large raindrop falling from a great height. The bioluminescent displays become more spectacular here, where darkness is most complete. Entire logs glow with sheets of living light, their surfaces transformed into galleries of natural art that exist for an audience of nocturnal creatures. These glowing sculptures serve practical purposes, providing navigation aids for animals that have never seen sunlight. But their beauty transcends mere function to become something approaching the sublime. Water continues to define every aspect of this environment, but here it reaches its most perfect expression. Every leaf becomes a funnel designed to collect and direct moisture toward the roots that need it most. Every branch serves as an aqueduct, carrying life-giving water to aerial gardens, suspended impossibly high above the forest floor. And every tree trunk becomes a river system in miniature, channeling the accumulated moisture of countless leaves toward the earth below. The humidity has reached such perfect saturation that the very air seems to shimmer with suspended droplets too fine to see, but substantial enough to feel on your skin. This is moisture at its most nurturing, creating conditions so ideal for life that evolution has been able to experiment with forms and behaviors that push the boundaries of what seems possible. Breathing here feels like drinking the gentlest possible mist, each inhalation carrying with it the concentrated life force of the entire forest. Moving deeper into this aquatic wonderland, we encounter a sight that defies easy description. Where the underground stream emerges briefly from beneath a fallen log, it has carved a small pool no larger than a hot tub, but so perfectly clear that its depth becomes impossible to judge. The water reflects the glowing fungi on the log above, creating the illusion of constellations swimming in liquid space. This miniature lake supports an entire ecosystem of creatures adapted to perpetual twilight and perfect humidity. Transparent fish dart between submerged leaves. Their bodies so clear, they're visible mainly as moving distortions in the water. Aquatic insects skate across the surface tension, their movements creating ripples that disturb the reflected bioluminescent light in patterns of liquid fire. The edges of this pool support their own specialized communities. Thread-like roots from overhead epiphytes dangle into the water like fiber optic cables, each one outlined in tiny droplets that catch and hold whatever light exists in this shadowy realm. Delicate ferns create curtains of living lace that filter the water as it enters and leaves the pool. Their fronds so finely divided, they seem to be made of condensed humidity itself. As we continue along the water's edge, the forest reveals another of its countless architectural marvels. A massive vine, perhaps centuries old, has grown in a perfect spiral around a tree trunk, creating a living staircase that disappears into the darkness above. Water runs down the grooves in this organic sculpture, following pathways worn by countless wet seasons into channels so smooth they might have been polished by master craftsmen. The sounds emanating from this water feature add yet another layer to the forest's acoustic tapestry. The gentle splash of droplets falling from groove to groove creates a natural xylophone, each note perfectly tuned by the resonant properties of the wood and the precise distance the water travels. The result is music that seems composed by the forest itself, melodies that rise and fall with the irregular rhythm of condensation and gravity. Here, suspended over the water on a network of interwoven branches, we discover one of the forest's most remarkable examples of cooperation between species. A bromeliad the size of a wash basin has collected rainwater in its central reservoir, creating an aerial lake that supports its own complete ecosystem. Small frogs call from within this suspended pond, their voices echoing in the natural amphitheater created by the plant's rigid leaves. The microclimate around this aerial ecosystem differs noticeably from the surrounding environment. The air is even more humid here, if such a thing is possible, creating conditions perfect for plants that require constant moisture to survive. Tiny seedlings sprout from every available surface, their roots finding purchase in nothing but accumulated organic matter and persistent dampness. Moving away from this aquatic wonder, the trail leads us through a section of forest where the canopy has grown so thick that bioluminescence provides the only source of illumination. Here, in conditions of perpetual night, creatures have evolved forms of communication based entirely on light. Glowing insects trace ephemeral patterns through the humid air, their movements creating temporary constellations that appear and vanish like thoughts made visible. The forest floor beneath us has become a gallery of living sculpture, where every fallen log and accumulated pile of organic matter glows with its own unique pattern of bioluminescent fungi. These displays serve as more than mere decoration, providing essential services to the forest ecosystem by making nutrients available to the countless organisms working to break down complex organic matter into its component elements. Water droplets continue to accumulate and fall in patterns so complex they create their own weather systems within the forest. Leaves collect moisture until they reach their capacity, then release it in gentle showers that water the plants below. This process creates microclimates within microclimates, each one supporting its own specialized community of organisms adapted to specific combinations of humidity, temperature, and light. The air itself has become so saturated with moisture and the breath of countless plants that it takes on an almost nutritional quality. Each breath delivers not just oxygen, but the concentrated essence of millions of photosynthetic processes, chemical communications between plants, and the subtle aromatics released by flowers that bloom only in complete darkness. As we move deeper into this realm of perpetual mist, the very concept of dryness becomes as foreign as the idea of silence. Everything here exists in various states of wetness, from the gentle film of condensation that coats every surface to the standing pools of crystal clear water that collect in natural depressions between roots. This isn't the harsh wetness of a storm, but something far more gentle and life-giving. The trail ahead curves around the base of what might be the largest tree we've encountered yet. Its trunk so massive that its far side disappears into the humid darkness. The buttressed roots of this giant create natural chambers and alcoves, each one a microhabitat with its own climate and community of specialized residents. In one shallow basin formed by intersecting roots, a pool of water no larger than a birdbath supports an entire aquatic ecosystem, including plants, insects, and microscopic organisms that exist nowhere else on Earth. The sounds here become even more intimate and personal, as if the forest is sharing its most private moments with those patient enough to listen. The gentle plash of a tiny creature entering water, the almost inaudible rustle of something moving through saturated leaves, the soft percussion of water droplets falling from impossible heights to land on surfaces made soft by perpetual moisture. Above us, invisible in the darkness, aerial gardens cascade from branches we cannot see, their roots forming curtains of living fiber that filter the air and create habitat for countless creatures too small to imagine. These hanging ecosystems contribute their own subtle sounds to the forest's symphony. The whisper of air moving through countless tiny leaves, the gentle drip of water moving from epiphyte to epiphyte in a vertical journey that might take hours to complete. The path continues to wind deeper into this aquatic paradise, each step taking us further from any concept of dryness or harshness and closer to a state of perfect harmony with the gentle rhythms of perpetual moisture. Here, where every surface weeps with accumulated humidity and every breath carries the essence of countless living things, we find ourselves approaching something that transcends mere physical experience to become a form of communion with the most nurturing aspects of the natural world. The night stretches ahead, full of even deeper mysteries and more profound peace, as this sanctuary of mist and gentle sound continues to work its ancient magic on our nervous systems, drawing us ever closer to that perfect state of relaxation where the boundaries between self and forest dissolve completely, leaving only the eternal rhythm of water and the soft whisper of life itself breathing in the darkness. The forest floor begins to reveal its most intimate secrets now, where countless generations of fallen leaves have created a manuscript written in layers of decay and renewal. Each step releases whispers from this organic archive, soft exhalations of earthy perfume that speak of time measured not in hours, but in seasons. The topmost leaves still hold the memory of their final autumn, crackling gently beneath our weight, with sounds like distant paper being turned in a vast, quiet library. Beneath this surface layer, we discover leaves that have begun their transformation into something richer and more complex. Their edges have softened, their colors have deepened to browns and golds that seem to absorb the few traces of bioluminescent light filtering through the humid air. And deeper still, we find soil so dark and fertile, it appears to drink in illumination itself. The final chapter in countless stories of growth, death, and rebirth that have played out on this forest floor for millennia. The humidity here reaches levels that transform the very act of breathing into something approaching nourishment. Each inhalation carries with it not just oxygen, but the concentrated essence of millions of leaves working in perfect harmony, releasing moisture and aromatic compounds that have been refined by evolution to create the most soothing possible atmospheric chemistry. The air moves through your lungs like liquid comfort, warm and thick with the breath of countless unseen companions. As we move deeper into this realm of perpetual mist, the trail begins to follow what appears to be an ancient animal path, worn smooth by generations of creatures that have found the same routes through this vertical maze. The path winds between buttressed roots and around fallen logs with such natural grace that it feels less like following a trail and more like being guided by the forest itself towards some ultimate revelation of peace. Here, where moisture has reached its most perfect expression, every surface becomes a canvas for water to paint its delicate masterpieces. Spiderwebs, invisible during daylight hours, now reveal themselves as works of art, where each strand is outlined in tiny pearls of condensed humidity. These gossamer sculptures stretch between branches at every level, creating barriers so fine they barely disturb the air that passes through them, yet strong enough to catch flying insects in their silken embrace. The sounds around us continue to evolve as we penetrate deeper into this aquatic sanctuary. What began as simple chirping has transformed into something approaching orchestral complexity, where every creature seems to understand its role in a composition that has been refined over millions of years. High above, beyond the reach of our vision, the gentle rustle of leaves moved by air currents, too subtle to feel at ground level, creates a constant whispered accompaniment to the more prominent voices closer to Earth. Moving through this acoustic wonderland, we encounter a microhabitat so small it could fit within the circle of your arms, yet so complete it supports its own entire ecosystem. Where two massive roots intersect, organic matter has accumulated over decades to create a tiny garden suspended several feet above the main forest floor. A cluster of delicate ferns grows here, their fronds so finely divided they seem to be constructed from crystallized mist, each leaflet trembling with accumulated moisture that falls in irregular droplets. The bioluminescent displays become more pronounced as we move deeper into areas where decomposition proceeds at its most vigorous pace. Fallen branches glow with sheets of living light, their surfaces transformed into galleries of natural art that exist for an audience of creatures that navigate entirely by touch and sound. These glowing sculptures pulse gently in rhythms that seem synchronized with some deeper heartbeat of the forest itself. Water continues to define every aspect of this environment, but here it reveals new dimensions of subtlety and complexity. Leaves channel moisture toward their stems in perfectly evolved drainage systems that would make human engineers weep with envy. Each leaf acts as both collector and distributor, gathering humidity from the air while directing accumulated water toward the roots that need it most. The result is a hydraulic network of incredible sophistication, all operating in complete silence. The air moves differently here in the forest's deeper recesses, circulating in gentle currents that carry the concentrated fragrances of night-blooming flowers. These plants release their aromatics only in darkness, creating chemical trails through the humid atmosphere that guide nocturnal pollinators across impossible distances. To breathe this perfumed air is to participate in conversations that have been taking place between plants and insects for millions of years. As we round a gentle curve in the trail, the forest opens into what can only be described as a natural cathedral. Here, where several massive trees grow in close proximity, their interlocking canopies create a living dome that rises into darkness so complete it seems solid. The space beneath this organic architecture feels sacred, a sanctuary where sound takes on new dimensions of clarity and resonance. Within this natural cathedral, we discover one of the forest's most remarkable acoustic phenomena. The curved surfaces of buttressed roots and the hollow spaces within fallen logs create natural amplification chambers where even the softest sounds become clearly audible. A single droplet, falling from an invisible height, lands with crystalline clarity. The gentle scrape of tiny claws on wet bark echoes briefly before being absorbed by the humid air. The almost inaudible rustle of something moving through accumulated leaves becomes a symphony of texture and movement. The forest floor here reveals new complexities with every step. What appears to be solid ground proves to be a floating garden of moss and organic matter, so thick and saturated with moisture that each footfall sinks slightly into this living carpet. The sensation is like walking on the most luxurious cushion ever created, one that breathes and sighs gently beneath your weight while releasing subtle fragrances that speak of deep time and patient transformation. Above us, though invisible in the darkness, aerial ecosystems cascade from branches we cannot see. Epiphytic gardens hang like living curtains, their roots forming networks of fiber that filter the air while providing habitat for countless creatures too small to imagine. These suspended worlds contribute their own whispered sounds to the forest's symphony, the soft patter of water moving from plant to plant in vertical journeys that might take hours to complete. Moving deeper into this realm of perpetual twilight, we encounter a series of natural terraces where the forest floor descends in gentle steps toward an unseen destination. Each level creates its own microclimate, with the lower terraces becoming progressively more humid and mysterious. The air grows thicker with each descending step, so rich with moisture that it begins to feel almost tangible, like breathing liquid silk. The bioluminescence becomes more spectacular as we descend into areas where darkness reigns supreme. Entire logs glow with patterns of light so complex they resemble cities viewed from space, each point of illumination representing a community of organisms working together to break down organic matter and return nutrients to the soil. These glowing sculptures serve as navigation aids for nocturnal creatures while creating an otherworldly beauty that exists solely for its own sake. Water reveals new expressions of artistry at every turn. Here, a fallen leaf has become a perfect funnel, channeling accumulated moisture into a tiny stream that flows along a groove in the bark of a massive tree. There, a network of spider webs has created a collection system so efficient it gathers enough water to support a small garden of mosses and minute ferns growing in the crevices between roots. The sounds continue to evolve as different layers of the forest contribute their voices to the ongoing composition. From somewhere impossibly high above, the soft call of a nightbird floats down through the humid air like liquid music. Closer to our level, the gentle splash of water moving through natural channels creates rhythmic patterns that blend seamlessly with the percussion of falling droplets. And from the forest floor itself, the almost inaudible sounds of countless small creatures going about their nocturnal business add texture and complexity to the acoustic tapestry. Here, where a small stream emerges from beneath the root system of an ancient giant, we discover a pool so clear and still, it seems like liquid glass. The water reflects the few points of bioluminescent light with perfect fidelity, creating the illusion of swimming constellations in a universe made of darkness and moisture. Small fish, their bodies so transparent they're visible mainly as moving distortions, dart between submerged leaves in patterns that create gentle ripples across the reflected lights. The edges of this miniature lake support their own specialized communities of organisms adapted to life at the intersection of water and air. Delicate mosses form cushions of living velvet along the waterline. Thread-like roots from overhead epiphytes dangle into the water like natural fiber optic cables, each one outlined in tiny droplets that catch and hold whatever light exists in this shadowy realm. The temperature remains perfectly balanced at that magical point, where the human body requires no energy to maintain comfort. This is the climate that has allowed tropical rainforests to become laboratories of evolution, where stable conditions persisting for millions of years have provided the consistency necessary for life to experiment with forms and behaviors that push the boundaries of possibility. Every breath here delivers not just oxygen, but the concentrated life force of an entire ecosystem working in perfect harmony. Moving away from the water's edge, we follow the trail as it winds between massive buttressed roots that create natural alcoves and chambers. Each of these organic rooms has its own microclimate and specialized community of residents. In one shallow depression, rainwater has collected to form a pool no larger than a soup bowl. Yet this tiny body of water supports aquatic insects, microscopic organisms, and serves as a complete nursery for creatures that will spend their entire larval development in this miniature pond. The air circulation becomes even more subtle here in these protected spaces, moving in gentle currents that carry fragrances so complex they exist more as suggestions than actual scents. Night-blooming orchids release their aromatics into this humid atmosphere, creating chemical messages that have evolved over millions of years to attract specific pollinators in complete darkness. These ancient perfumes now work their magic on our own nervous systems, promoting relaxation through pathways established long before human consciousness evolved. As we continue deeper into this aquatic paradise, the very concept of dryness becomes as foreign as silence. Everything here exists in various states of wetness, from the gentle film of condensation that coats every surface to the standing pools of crystal clear water that collect in natural depressions between roots. This isn't the harsh wetness of a storm, but something far more nurturing and life-giving, as if the forest itself is gently weeping tears of pure joy. The bioluminescent displays reach new levels of complexity as we move into areas where nutrients accumulate and decomposition proceeds at its most vigorous pace. Patches of glowing fungi create patterns so intricate they resemble circuit boards made of living light, each point of illumination serving both practical and aesthetic purposes. These natural lanterns provide navigation aids for creatures that have never seen sunlight, while creating beauty that exists purely for its own sake. The trail continues to descend through this wonderland of moisture and gentle sound, leading us ever deeper into the heart of the forest's most intimate secrets. Each step takes us further from any memory of harshness or dryness, drawing us into a state of perfect harmony with the gentle rhythms of perpetual humidity. Here, where every surface drips with life-giving moisture and every breath carries the essence of countless living things, we find ourselves approaching something that transcends mere physical experience to become a form of communion with the most nurturing aspects of the natural world. The night stretches endlessly ahead, full of even deeper mysteries and more profound peace, as this sanctuary of mist and whispered sound continues to work its ancient magic on our weary spirits, drawing us ever closer to that perfect state of rest where all boundaries dissolve and we become one with the eternal rhythm of water falling gently in the darkness, carrying us softly toward dreams filled with the gentle breathing of the earth itself. The forest floor begins to reveal patterns within patterns now, where fallen logs have become highways for creatures so small they exist at the very edge of perception. These wooden bridges, softened by decades of moisture and decay, support entire civilizations of organisms working in perfect cooperation. Beetles no larger than grains of rice carve intricate tunnels through the saturated wood, their movements creating the softest possible scratching sounds that blend seamlessly with the ambient whisper of the forest breathing. Each log tells its own story, through the communities it supports. Some glow with patches of bioluminescent fungi, arranged in spirals that follow the grain of the wood, creating natural mandalas of living light. Others support gardens of moss, so thick and lush, they transform rough bark into carpets of emerald velvet that seem to pulse gently with accumulated moisture. Still others have become nurseries, where seeds dropped by passing birds decades ago have grown into saplings that will eventually tower above the canopy we cannot see. The humidity here reaches levels that transform every breath into a form of liquid nourishment. The air moves through your lungs with the consistency of the finest silk, warm and heavy, with the concentrated essence of millions of leaves working together to create an atmosphere so rich it seems almost edible. This is air that has been filtered through countless layers of vegetation, purified by processes so ancient they predate human consciousness by millions of years. Moving deeper along this winding pathway, we discover that what appeared to be solid ground is actually a floating continent of organic matter, so thick with accumulated leaves and decomposing vegetation that it bounces gently beneath our feet like the most luxurious mattress ever conceived. Each step releases pockets of trapped fragrance, subtle aromatics that speak of cycles within cycles, of death becoming life becoming death in an endless dance of transformation. The trail leads us now between buttressed roots so massive they create natural amphitheaters where sound takes on new dimensions of clarity and resonance. Within these organic concert halls, the gentle drip of condensing moisture becomes a percussion section of incredible sophistication. Each droplet creates its own unique tone as it falls from invisible heights to land on surfaces made resonant by decades of patient weathering. Here, suspended in a web of interlocking branches, we encounter what can only be described as a floating garden. Epiphytes cascade downward in living waterfalls of green, their roots never touching soil, drawing all their nutrients from the humid air and the organic matter that accumulates in the crevices of bark. These aerial ecosystems support their own complete communities of creatures adapted to life in perpetual twilight and perfect moisture. The sounds emanating from these hanging gardens add layers of complexity to the forest's ongoing symphony. The whisper of air moving through countless tiny leaves creates a background hum so subtle it exists more as sensation than actual sound. Water moves from plant to plant in vertical rivers too small to see, its passage marked only by the occasional soft plash, as a droplet completes its journey from canopy to forest floor. Bioluminescent displays become more frequent as we move deeper into areas where darkness reigns supreme and decomposition proceeds at its most vigorous pace. Fallen branches pulse with sheets of living light, their surfaces transformed into galleries of natural art that serve both practical and aesthetic purposes. These glowing sculptures provide navigation aids for nocturnal creatures, while creating beauty that exists purely for the joy of existence itself. The air circulation changes subtly here in these deeper recesses, moving in currents so gentle they barely disturb the suspended moisture that gives everything a soft, dreamlike quality. Night-blooming flowers release their fragrances into this humid atmosphere, creating chemical trails that guide pollinators across distances that would seem impossible in any less cooperative environment. To breathe this perfumed air is to participate in conversations that have been taking place for millions of years between plants and the creatures that serve them. As we follow the trail around the base of what might be the most ancient tree we've yet encountered, its trunk so massive that walking around it would take several minutes, we discover natural chambers formed by the intersection of buttressed roots. Each of these organic rooms has developed its own microclimate over decades or centuries, creating specialized environments within the larger ecosystem. In one such chamber, no larger than a small closet, the humidity has reached such perfect saturation that the air itself seems to shimmer with suspended droplets too fine to see, but substantial enough to feel on your skin. Here, plants grow that exist nowhere else, species so adapted to these specific conditions that they would perish if moved even a few feet in any direction. Their leaves, so delicate they appear to be constructed from crystallized mist, tremble with accumulated moisture that falls in patterns too complex for the mind to fully comprehend. The forest floor within this natural room tells stories written in layers of organic matter so deep they represent decades of accumulated history. Each layer holds the memory of different seasons, different weather patterns, different communities of organisms that have lived and died, and been transformed into the rich, dark soil that supports the incredible diversity of life surrounding us. Moving through this intimate space, we become aware of sounds so subtle they exist at the very threshold of perception. The gentle rustle of something no larger than a fingernail moving through saturated leaves, the almost inaudible drip of moisture condensing on surfaces invisible in the darkness, the soft exhalation of gases released by countless organisms working to break down organic matter into its component elements. Emerging from this natural chamber, we find ourselves following what appears to be a stream that flows sometimes above ground, sometimes beneath fallen logs and accumulated organic matter. The water moves with such gentleness that it barely creates any sound, just the occasional soft gurgle as it encounters a small obstacle or the gentle lap of tiny waves against a moss-covered stone. This hidden waterway supports its own specialized ecosystem of creatures adapted to life in perpetual twilight and flowing water. Aquatic insects skate across the surface tension with movements so delicate they barely disturb the perfect mirror that reflects the few points of bioluminescent light. Small fish, their bodies so transparent they're visible mainly as moving distortions in the crystal clear water, dart between submerged leaves in patterns that create gentle ripples across the reflected illumination. The banks of this miniature river support plant community so specialized they exist nowhere else in the forest. Thread-like mosses form cushions along the water's edge, their surfaces so perfectly adapted to absorbing moisture that they seem to glow with their own inner light. Delicate ferns create curtains of living lace that filter the water as it passes, their fronds so finely divided they appear to be constructed from concentrated humidity itself. Above this aquatic paradise, suspended from branches we cannot see in the darkness, aerial roots dangle into the water like natural fiber optic cables. Each root is outlined in tiny droplets that catch and hold whatever light exists in this shadowy realm, creating patterns of illumination that shift and change with every breath of air that moves through the forest. The humidity continues to work its transformative magic on every surface around us. What were rough, dry textures just hours ago have now become flowing sculptures of liquid and living matter. Tree bark streams with rivulets that follow channels carved by countless wet seasons, creating natural irrigation systems that nourish the countless epiphytes clinging to every vertical surface. The sounds here take on an even more intimate quality as we move deeper into this aquatic wonderland. Each frequency seems to occupy its own acoustic space, never interfering with the others, creating a three-dimensional sound environment that surrounds and embraces us from every direction. High above, the rustle of leaves moved by air currents too gentle to feel at ground level. In the middle story, the soft calls of creatures navigating between branches, and here at water level, the whispered conversations of liquid moving over stone and through organic channels. Moving along the stream's edge, we encounter a series of natural pools where the water has carved shallow basins in areas where softer organic matter has accumulated between harder root structures. Each pool, no larger than a dinner plate, supports its own complete aquatic ecosystem, including plants, insects, and microscopic organisms that exist nowhere else on Earth. The water in these miniature lakes is so clear, it seems like liquid air, allowing us to observe the complex interactions taking place in what amounts to entire worlds contained within spaces smaller than bathtubs. Transparent larvae move through forests of aquatic vegetation that wave gently in currents too subtle to detect, except through their influence on these underwater gardens. The bioluminescent displays reach new levels of artistry here, where water and organic matter combine to create perfect conditions for organisms that produce their own light. Submerged logs glow with patterns so complex they resemble underwater cities, each point of illumination representing communities of organisms working together in cooperation so sophisticated it approaches the level of intelligence. Above the water, suspended between reeds that grow along the stream's edge, spiderwebs stretched across the flowing surface create landing platforms for insects that come to drink in the darkness. These gossamer structures, invisible until outlined by accumulated moisture, serve as both practical hunting tools and works of natural art that exist for audiences of creatures that navigate entirely by touch and sound. The air above the water carries its own unique chemistry, even more humid than the surrounding forest, creating perfect conditions for plants that require constant moisture to survive. Night-blooming water lilies release their fragrances into this saturated atmosphere, creating aromatherapy experiences so subtle they work directly on the nervous system without requiring conscious recognition. As we continue following the stream deeper into the forest's heart, the water begins to reveal new expressions of artistry and engineering. Here, a natural dam formed by fallen branches has created a pool deep enough to support fish that may never have seen sunlight. There, the stream disappears beneath a massive root system, only to emerge again yards away as a spring that bubbles up through the forest floor with water so pure it might have been distilled by the earth itself. The temperature remains perfectly balanced at that magical point where the boundary between body and environment begins to dissolve. This is the climate that has nurtured the incredible diversity of life we're surrounded by. Conditions so stable they've persisted for millions of years, providing the consistency necessary for evolution to experiment with forms and behaviors that push the very boundaries of possibility. Moving deeper still, we discover that the stream leads to what can only be described as the forest's secret garden. Here, where water emerges from beneath the root system of several ancient giants, it has carved a natural amphitheater where moisture and nutrients combine to create conditions perfect for plants that exist nowhere else on Earth. The air shimmers with humidity so perfect it seems to glow, creating an atmosphere so nurturing that simply breathing here feels like receiving nourishment for both body and soul. The acoustic properties of this natural theatre transform even the softest sounds into experiences of crystalline clarity. A single droplet falling from an invisible height lands with the precision of a perfectly tuned bell. The gentle movement of tiny creatures through saturated organic matter becomes a symphony of texture and life. And through it all, the whispered conversation of water moving through channels carved by time and patience creates a background harmony that seems to synchronize with the rhythm of our own heartbeat. Here, in this sanctuary, within a sanctuary, we pause to fully absorb the profound peace that surrounds us. The night air pulses gently with the accumulated breath of millions of organisms, each one contributing to an atmospheric chemistry that exists nowhere else in the known universe. Every inhalation delivers the concentrated essence of cooperation, patience, and the kind of profound harmony that emerges when countless individual lives work together toward the greater good of the whole. The bioluminescent displays reach their most spectacular expression in this hidden amphitheater, where nutrients accumulate and life proceeds at its most vigorous pace. Patterns of living light create natural mandalas that pulse gently in rhythms synchronized with processes too deep and ancient for the conscious mind to fully comprehend. These displays serve as more than mere decoration, providing essential services to the forest ecosystem while creating beauty that exists purely for the joy of being beautiful. As we rest here in this natural cathedral, surrounded by the gentle symphony of water and the soft glow of living light, we find ourselves approaching that perfect state of harmony where all boundaries dissolve and we become part of the eternal rhythm that has sustained this place since long before human voices joined the chorus of life on Earth. The stream continues its patient journey toward destinations unknown, carrying with it the accumulated wisdom of countless seasons and the promise of renewal that flows eternally through the heart of this aquatic paradise, where time moves like honey, and every moment offers new reasons to marvel at the infinite creativity of the living world. The trail ahead beckons us toward even deeper mysteries, where the forest floor begins to reveal its most intimate architecture. Here, where countless seasons of fallen leaves have created organic sculptures of incredible complexity, we discover that each step unveils microhabitats, so specialized they exist in spaces no larger than the palm of your hand. Between the interlocking roots of ancient giants, tiny valleys have formed where moisture collects and nurtures communities of organisms that have never known any other world than these few square inches of perfect humidity. Moving through this realm of miniature ecosystems, we encounter a fallen branch no thicker than your wrist, yet along its length grow dozens of different species of moss, each one adapted to the specific conditions of its particular section of bark. Some thrive where water drips most frequently from the canopy above. Others flourish in the slightly drier zones between drip points, and still others have claimed the underside of the branch, where humidity accumulates without the disturbance of falling droplets. The sounds here exist at frequencies so subtle they require complete stillness to appreciate. Listen carefully, and you'll hear the almost inaudible whisper of moss absorbing moisture from the saturated air. The gentle percussion of dewdrops condensing on surfaces too small to see clearly in this twilight world. The soft rustle of creatures so tiny they navigate through landscapes where individual moss stems tower like trees and fallen leaves become vast continents to explore. Each microhabitat tells its own story through the specialized communities it supports. In one shallow depression between buttressed roots, no larger than a teacup, an entire ecosystem revolves around a single pool of rainwater that may have been collecting for weeks. Microscopic organisms create their own weather patterns within this miniature lake, while creatures barely visible to the naked eye establish territories and hunting grounds measured in millimeters rather than meters. The humidity reaches such perfection here that the air itself becomes a medium for life. Fungal spores drift on currents too gentle to feel, following chemical gradients that guide them toward the precise conditions they need to germinate. Bacterial communities communicate through molecular signals that travel through the saturated atmosphere like messages in an invisible postal system that operates continuously throughout the forest. As we move deeper along this winding path, the trail reveals how water has become the primary architect of this environment. Every surface channels moisture according to principles so refined they make human engineering seem crude by comparison. Leaves funnel condensation toward their stems with mathematical precision. Bark grooves guide rivulets along paths that maximize the distribution of life-giving water to every organism that depends on this liquid lifeline. The bioluminescent displays become more intricate as we encounter areas where decomposition proceeds with the unhurried patience of geological time. Individual fungi, no larger than pinheads, pulse with light so gentle it barely disturbs the darkness, yet provides essential navigation services for creatures that have evolved to read these living signals like a language written in illumination. Here, where a massive root emerges from the forest floor before disappearing again into the organic depths, we discover a microhabitat that exists in the space between earth and air. The curved surface of this natural bridge supports its own vertical ecosystem, where different species have colonized zones based on their tolerance for moisture, light, and the subtle chemical gradients that exist along the root's length. The sounds emanating from this aerial microhabitat add new textures to the forest's ongoing composition. Water moves along the root's surface in streams so small they're barely visible, yet their passage creates music of incredible delicacy. Each droplet that reaches the root's lowest point falls with the precision of a metronome, creating rhythmic patterns that blend seamlessly with the larger symphony surrounding us. Moving through this gallery of miniature worlds, we begin to understand how the forest creates infinite variety within seemingly uniform conditions. What appears from a distance to be simple repetition of moss and fern reveals itself upon closer examination to be a complex mosaic where no 2 square inches support exactly the same community of organisms. The air circulation becomes even more subtle in these protected spaces between roots and fallen logs, moving in currents so gentle they barely disturb the suspended moisture that gives everything a soft, dreamlike quality. These microclimates exist within microclimates, each one maintaining its own perfect balance of temperature, humidity, and chemical composition through processes so complex they operate beyond the reach of conscious understanding. As we pause beside a particularly intricate arrangement of fallen branches and accumulated organic matter, the forest reveals one of its most remarkable examples of cooperative engineering. Here, dozens of different species of plants have worked together over decades to create a living sculpture where each organism occupies exactly the ecological niche that allows the entire community to thrive in perfect harmony. The base layer consists of mosses so ancient they may have been among the first plants to colonize land hundreds of millions of years ago. These simple organisms create the foundation that allows more complex plants to establish themselves in this aerial garden. Above them, delicate ferns spread their fronds in patterns that maximize their access to filtered light while providing shelter for the moss below. Climbing higher in this vertical ecosystem, we find orchids no larger than your thumbnail, their roots embedded in nothing but accumulated organic matter and persistent moisture. These aerial jewels bloom in colors so intense they seem to generate their own light, their petals trembling with accumulated dewdrops that catch and reflect the few traces of bioluminescence filtering through the humid air. The sounds produced by this living sculpture exist at the very threshold of perception. The whisper of air moving through countless tiny spaces between leaves and stems. The almost inaudible drip of water moving from level to level in this vertical garden. The soft percussion of insects so small their footsteps on wet leaves sound like distant rain falling on silk. Water continues to reveal new expressions of artistry as it moves through this three-dimensional maze of living architecture. Here, a single leaf has become a perfect funnel, collecting moisture from the air and directing it toward a cluster of moss that grows in the protected space beneath. There, a network of spiderwebs has created a collection system so efficient it gathers enough water to support an entire community of plants growing in spaces between bark and accumulated organic matter. The humidity works its magic on every surface, transforming what were once distinct boundaries between organisms into flowing transitions where one species gradually blends into another. Moss flows into fern, fern merges with orchid, and orchid gives way to vine in patterns so subtle they require complete stillness to appreciate. This is evolution made visible, the slow dance of adaptation and cooperation that has created ecosystems of incredible sophistication within spaces measured in inches rather than acres. Moving deeper into this realm of microhabitats, we encounter a fallen log that has become a universe unto itself. Along its length, different communities have established themselves based on the specific conditions that exist at each point. Where the log rests directly on the forest floor, moisture-loving species create carpets of living velvet. Where it's elevated slightly above the ground, species adapted to better drainage have claimed territories measured in handspans. The acoustic properties of this natural instrument change subtly along its length, creating different tones and resonances as water drips onto various surfaces. The dense moss at one end produces soft, muffled sounds like whispers in a cathedral. The more open areas near the middle create clearer, more bell-like tones. And the elevated sections at the far end ring with crystalline clarity as droplets fall onto surfaces made resonant by decades of patient weathering. Above this fallen giant, suspended from branches invisible in the darkness, aerial roots dangle like natural fiber optic cables, each one outlined in tiny droplets that pulse gently with accumulated moisture. These living connectors link the terrestrial ecosystem below with the canopy ecosystem above, creating pathways for nutrients, water, and even organisms to travel between different layers of the forest. The bioluminescent displays reach new levels of complexity here, where organic matter accumulates and decomposition proceeds at nature's most patient pace. Individual points of light pulse in patterns so subtle they seem synchronized with your own breathing, creating the illusion that the forest floor itself is alive with gentle respiration. As we continue along this winding trail through countless microhabitats, each step reveals new examples of the incredible creativity that emerges when life has had millions of years to experiment with form and function. Here, a spiderweb stretched between moss-covered stones has become a living harp, its strands vibrating in response to air movements too subtle to feel, creating music that exists purely for the joy of making sound. There, a cluster of tiny flowers, each no larger than a grain of rice, releases fragrances so specific they attract pollinators from distances that seem impossible given the scale of the ecosystem they inhabit. These chemical messages drift through the humid air like molecular love letters, carrying information about genetic compatibility and reproductive readiness across the vast distances that separate organisms living just inches apart. The forest floor continues to reveal its secrets as we move deeper into this realm where every square inch supports its own unique community of specialized organisms. Fallen leaves become landscapes where creatures smaller than ants establish territories and hunting grounds. Individual moss stems provide highways for organisms so tiny they navigate through forests where dewdrops loom like crystal boulders, and spider silk becomes rope bridges spanning chasms measured in millimeters. The sounds here exist in dimensions we rarely consider, frequencies so subtle they register more as sensation than actual hearing. The whisper of fungal threads growing through organic matter, the gentle pop of spores being released into the saturated air, the almost inaudible rustle of creatures so small their entire life cycle plays out within the confines of a single fallen leaf. Each breath here delivers not just oxygen, but the concentrated essence of countless microscopic conversations taking place between organisms whose existence we can barely imagine. Chemical signals drift through the humid atmosphere, carrying information about resource availability, territorial boundaries, and reproductive opportunities across distances that represent entire continents to the creatures involved in these molecular communications. The humidity continues to work its transformative magic, creating conditions so perfect for life that evolution has been able to experiment with forms that exist nowhere else on Earth. In spaces between bark and accumulated moss, we find creatures so specialized they have evolved to exploit ecological niches measured in cubic inches. Their entire universe consists of the microhabitat they were born into, yet within these tiny spaces, they experience all the drama and complexity of larger ecosystems played out in miniature. Moving through this gallery of living art, we encounter a natural terrarium where a hollow in a fallen log has collected enough organic matter to support its own complete ecosystem. The walls of this organic container are lined with moss so thick it creates a carpet soft enough to cushion the footsteps of creatures no larger than pinheads. Above this miniature meadow, a canopy of delicate ferns filters what little light penetrates the forest's deeper layers. The acoustic environment within this natural terrarium differs noticeably from the surrounding forest. Sounds seem to focus and concentrate, creating an intimate audio space where even the softest whispers become clearly audible. The gentle drip of condensation takes on new dimensions of clarity and resonance, each droplet creating its own unique tone as it falls onto different surfaces within this organic echo chamber. Water moves through this miniature landscape according to the same principles that govern much larger watersheds, but compressed into spaces where entire river systems can be traced with your fingertip. Tiny streams flow along channels carved by countless previous droplets, feeding pools no larger than bottle caps that serve as oceans for the microscopic organisms that call this terrarium home. The bioluminescent displays within this enclosed space create patterns of light so intricate they resemble circuit boards designed by nature itself. Each glowing point serves multiple purposes, providing illumination for creatures that navigate in perpetual darkness while contributing to the chemical processes that maintain the delicate balance of this miniature ecosystem. As we move away from this natural terrarium and continue deeper into the forest's embrace, the trail leads us through areas where microhabitats exist in such abundance that every step reveals new examples of life's incredible ability to find opportunity in the smallest possible spaces. Between the scales of bark, we find gardens measured in square millimeters. In the hollow stems of fallen plants, entire communities thrive in darkness so complete that bioluminescence becomes the primary source of illumination. The sounds continue to evolve as we penetrate deeper into this realm, where size becomes relative and distance is measured in fractions of inches rather than feet or yards. Each microhabitat contributes its own voice to the forest's symphony, creating acoustic textures so complex they exist beyond the ability of conscious perception to fully catalogue and understand. Here, where the trail winds between buttressed roots that create natural alcoves and chambers, we discover that even within these larger spaces, countless smaller microhabitats exist, like nesting dolls of ecological complexity. Each depression in the bark, each accumulation of organic matter, each intersection of root and stone becomes a world unto itself, supporting communities of organisms so specialized they have evolved to exploit resources that exist only within these tiny territories. The humidity reaches levels that transform breathing into something approaching meditation, each inhalation carrying with it the concentrated essence of cooperation and patience that defines this ancient ecosystem. The air moves through your lungs like liquid peace, warm and thick with the breath of countless unseen companions working together to create atmospheric conditions that exist nowhere else in the known universe. Moving forward through this realm, where every surface tells stories written in moisture and living light, we find ourselves approaching the deepest layers of the forest's intimate architecture. Here, where decomposition and renewal proceed at their most patient pace, the very concepts of individual and community begin to blur. As organisms work together so closely, they become indistinguishable from the environment they inhabit and help create. The night stretches endlessly ahead, full of even tinier worlds and more delicate wonders, as this sanctuary of miniature ecosystems continues to reveal the incredible creativity that emerges when life has infinite time and perfect conditions to explore every possible variation on the themes of cooperation, adaptation, and the gentle magic that transforms simple moisture into the foundation for communities of unimaginable complexity and beauty. Beauty. The path ahead reveals itself through gentle undulations in the forest floor, where centuries of fallen giants have created a landscape of natural valleys and ridges. Each depression holds its own secret world, where rainwater has pooled to form mirrors no larger than dinner plates, yet deep enough to reflect the pulsing glow of bioluminescent fungi that line their edges like living jewelry scattered across black velvet. Moving through these organic valleys, we discover how sound behaves differently in each miniature basin. The gentle plash of a droplet falling into one of these pools creates ripples that seem to carry whispers across the water's surface. In another depression, the accumulated organic matter has created such perfect acoustic dampening that even our own breathing seems muffled, as if the forest is gently hushing us into deeper states of relaxation. The humidity here has transcended mere moisture to become something approaching liquid atmosphere. Each breath feels substantial, nourishing, as if the air itself contains the concentrated essence of growth and renewal. Your skin begins to glisten with the same fine patina that coats every leaf and branch, creating a connection between your body and this living ecosystem that goes deeper than mere observation. Above us, though invisible in the darkness, the canopy continues its ancient work of climate control. Throughout the day, those distant leaves have been collecting solar energy and transforming it into the chemical building blocks of life. Now, in darkness, they reverse the process, releasing moisture and oxygen in quantities so vast they create their own weather systems within the forest's vertical layers. The trail winds between buttressed roots that have grown so large they form natural archways and tunnels. Walking through these living passages feels like entering the circulatory system of some enormous organism, where we become blood cells flowing through arteries carved from wood and time. The walls of these organic corridors stream with rivulets that follow channels worn smooth by countless wet seasons, creating natural irrigation systems that nourish the countless epiphytes growing in every available crevice. As our gentle journey through this aquatic wonderland draws to its quiet close, we find ourselves forever changed by the intimate secrets the rainforest has shared. We've walked among living cathedrals where every droplet tells a story, where bioluminescent fungi paint constellations across the forest floor, and where the very air pulses with the patient breath of millions of unseen companions. In this sanctuary of perpetual mist and whispered sound, we've discovered that true peace isn't found in silence, but in the gentle symphony of life itself. May the memory of these humid embraces and glowing trails carry you softly into dreams, where the eternal rhythm of falling water continues its ancient lullaby, long after our footsteps have faded into the darkness.